3, go.
Today, I will discuss the influence of the media upon civil disobedience. The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. Malcolm X's words resonate deeply in today's media landscape, where narratives surrounding dissent and protest often sway public opinion. The media's influence is undeniable. It can transform the innocent into culprits and the guilty into heroes. Such misrepresentations not only skew public perception, but also have the ability to shape societal attitudes towards activism and protest movements. This skewed portrayal, it is evident that sensationalism and partiality often overshadow factual news reporting and a nuanced understanding of civil disobedience. To begin, I will discuss the stimulus connection which initiated my research and defined the scope of my problem. Following, I will outline my proposed solution before providing a comprehensive conclusion. A key term mentioned throughout the presentation is civil disobedience, the definition of which fluctuates depending upon the point of view you evaluate from. From an activist standpoint, this would be seen as a peaceful way to bring about awareness to societal injustices and foster subsequent change. Whereas from an authoritative standpoint, this would be seen as disruptive to the peace and order of society, defined as a breach of law. Upon examination of the stimulus material, a recurring theme emerged: civil disobedience. A comparison of the articles Moral Courage and Intelligent Disobedience by Ted Thomas and Eloise Coble, A Small Measure of Justice by Melinda Janko revealed polar opinions regarding this form of activism. Along with authoritative voices, Thomas condemns this type of protest as inherently damaging, emphasizing its defiance of established laws. This starkly contrasts with Janko's admirations of Coble's act of disobedience. This stark divergence underscores the absence of a universally accurate portrayal of civil disobedience. This led me to my research question: how can society develop a more comprehensive and balanced portrayal of civil disobedience? The misrepresentation can be attributed to biased media coverage. A prevalent type of bias within social movements is called selection bias. This is characterized by media outlets focusing primarily on extreme positives or negatives in their research, as these aspects are deemed more newsworthy. Consequently, civil disobedience actions and movements are often portrayed inaccurately due to this reporting approach. Understanding the profound impact of biased media coverage on civil disobedience is crucial, as it not only highlights the inherent biases of media outlets, shapes public perception, but also contributes to the polarization of opinions surrounding this form of activism. This skewed portrayal can reinforce existing biases, deepen societal divisions, and hinder meaningful dialogue about the underlying issues being addressed by these movements. Namke Codenberg discusses how perceived opinion differentiation can fuel polarized societal debates, widening the divide between contrasting views. As aforementioned, activists and supporters regard civil disobedience as a fundamental tool for peacefully challenging unjust laws and societal norms, viewing it as an act of moral courage and a catalyst for positive change. Critics, on the other hand, perceive it as a disruptive threat to law and order. These contrasting views underline why polarized opinions persist regarding the validity, effectiveness, and morality of civil disobedience, with biased media coverage exacerbating these divides and shaping public discourse. Misrepresenting civil disobedience due to biased media coverage has significant negative impacts. Take, for example, the coverage of the Black Lives Matter movement by different news broadcasters. The news broadcaster on the left describes these protesters' actions as a form of tyranny and a threat to America. Meanwhile, the news broadcaster on the right depicts a dramatic scene with the ironic headline, "A fiery but mostly peaceful protest after police shooting," attempting to portray said protests positively. Such stark contrast in portrayal not only highlight the inherent biases of media outlets, but also contribute to the polarization of opinions regarding this form of activism. This biased news broadcast perpetuated misconceptions and hindered constructive dialogue on the important social issues being addressed. This underscores the critical need for media outlets to uphold journalistic integrity, present balanced perspectives, and promote an accurate representation of events to foster a more informed and cohesive society. Reiterating the research question, how can society develop a more comprehensive and balanced portrayal of civil disobedience? The answer is to implement government-regulated editorial standards. Editorial standards are guidelines set by media companies to uphold the quality and integrity of their work. However, the lack of general standards across the industry highlights the need for standardized guidelines. For instance, government-regulated editorial standards can ensure nationwide benchmarks, ensuring consistency and reliability in media reporting. Critics may raise concerns about potential violations of the First Amendment, specifically the freedom of speech. To address this, such standards would be voluntary rather than mandatory, allowing media companies to maintain their editorial independence while also enhancing transparency and accountability. Media organizations that voluntarily adhere to these standards could receive certification, affirming their credibility and reliability to the public. Another concern is that since this is a voluntary approach, there could be a lack of participation. To encourage participation despite the voluntary nature of the standards, the incentive of the certification is introduced. For without it, the viewer could recognize any potential bias this media company might have and therefore stray away from the usage of it. This approach promotes balanced journalism practices. In conclusion, biased media coverage of civil disobedience highlights the urgent need for balanced reporting and journalistic integrity. Addressing this issue requires a multi-phased approach. While increasing awareness amongst media consumers about biases is crucial, it is more imperative to hold media organizations accountable through the implementation of robust editorial standards. These standards, ideally regulated by government bodies, can ensure fairness, accuracy, and ethical reporting practices across media platforms. By adhering to rigorous editorial standards, media outlets can contribute positively to public discourse, foster meaningful dialogue on important social issues, and present a more balanced and nuanced portrayal of civil disobedience. Ultimately, prioritizing journalistic integrity is key to navigating the complex interplay between media influence and societal perceptions, paving the way for a more cohesive and enlightened society. These are my citations, and thank you for listening.